Are you ready? She asked. Yes, I think so, I answered her. She looked at me again, appraisingly. I was sure she was going to ask me to put them back on, but her smile told me otherwise. I told you, she commented triumphantly. It looks perfect on you. I just couldn't believe it. She opened the door and led me to the mirror. It would be ridiculous to say I didn't recognize myself. By now, I'd been doing my makeup, hair, taking classes, and generally living like a girl for almost 3 weeks. But this was different. With that dress I looked like a fairy from a fairy tale, and yes, it fit me perfectly. But that wasn't possible. Boobs don't just come from doing yoga, and the line between my waist and hips was absolutely undeniable. I was fascinated by my image in the mirror. I was absolutely a girl, but at the same time, I was terrified. I could no longer deceive myself. My body had changed, my emotions were changing, I was changing. But how? What did they do to me? Anne. Who did this to me? Turned into a court girl for a quinceañera party. Part 6. If you like this story, please consider subscribing. Around me, all the girls were wearing their dresses, and they all looked beautiful. Mariana wore her quinceañera dress, which was a long, slender version of the same dress in a slightly lighter shade. Everyone was happy, and everyone, including my aunt, told me it fit perfectly and that I looked very pretty. The seamstresses made some minor adjustments to the dresses and asked us to change back in. The dresses would be ready for delivery the next day. I had no choice but to continue in my role. I smiled, thanked everyone, and told them they looked very pretty, and yes, I did. I can't deny that I enjoyed the moment, but now I knew something was wrong, that someone had been playing me and manipulating me. We arrived at my aunt's house, and I hurried into the bathroom. I needed a moment to be alone and analyze my body. I took off my clothes in front of the mirror, and there was no doubt about it. The small bulge between my legs was the only thing that differentiated me from any of the girls. This couldn't possibly be natural. It couldn't be the effect of magic or any kind of suggestion. Even though I was just a teenager, I had studied and read enough to understand that my body was that of a girl and that it couldn't have happened spontaneously. I put on my pajamas and went to sleep, telling them I was tired and hadn't slept well the previous nights. Of course, I couldn't sleep. I didn't even try. On the contrary, I tried to recount what had led me to this moment. I remembered something my dad always said: the place you are now is a product of your past decisions. But in this case, the decisions hadn't been mine. So whose? My aunt's? What did she have to gain by turning me into a girl? All just for a party? And was it at least possible to change me so much in just a little over 2 months? I couldn't have all the answers, and I didn't know who to trust. Obviously, not my aunt or Mariana. I waited until they were asleep and left the room and the house so no one would hear me. It was late, but I knew my dad would answer the phone. When he answered, it wasn't easy to explain. My thoughts were coming out in complete disarray, and nothing seemed to make sense until he said, "Let's see, first, are you okay? What do you mean everything changed?" "Yes, I'm fine," I replied, "but I don't know, they did something to me." He listened patiently, and in a painfully embarrassing process, I explained everything. How I had started covering for the girls when they missed rehearsals, which led to me learning the girls' moves and learning to dance in heels, and how after Helen's accident, they had asked me to take her place in the choreography. Listening to it out loud and trying to make a logical sequence, it all seemed absurd and impossible to confess to my dad, but there was no one I trusted more. "I understand," he said. "So you've been living like a girl these past few weeks?" "Yes," I said, completely embarrassed. "But it was just to help my cousin and my aunt. Once the party was over, everything was supposed to go back to normal." "Please, I don't want to disappoint you." "You could never disappoint me," my dad assured me. "Don't even think about it. The only important thing to me is that you're okay and happy." I smiled slightly. "But my body has changed a lot. Today I tried on the dress that was meant for Helen, and it fit perfectly, and everything is mine. I don't recognize myself anymore." My dad listened and thought for a moment before answering. Before continuing, "Are you happy? I mean, have you enjoyed this whole experience?" I answered, very embarrassed. Yes, I've been very happy, but I don't understand. Okay, you don't need any explanation to be happy, you just feel it. But let's see, have you taken any medication? Yes. Since I got here, my aunt has been giving Jessie and me some vitamins. That must be true, but in less than 3 months, your body would have changed as much as you say. Before that, weren't there any other vitamins or anything similar? I cast my mind back and it came to me, almost a year ago, shortly after I told her I wanted to live with you. My mom also gave me vitamins for a few months. But then she stopped giving them to me when the allergy. What allergy? She said I was allergic to mosquitoes, that's why my skin felt weird, and she put a patch on my back. She had changed it every month until I came to my aunt's. And all of that was after you told her you were coming to live with me? Yes, around that time. I think she's been giving you hormones this whole time. I'm going to investigate. For now, don't worry. The only important thing is that you're happy, and if this has made you happy in any way, I don't care about anything else. Thanks, Dad. I'll investigate and call you, or if you prefer, call me when you have a chance. Okay, Dad. Should I stop taking the vitamins? I don't think they're vitamins, but hormones, and that's what's caused all the changes. But if you're happy, there's no point in stopping them. He said, the important thing is that the decision is yours and no one else's. Okay, I'll call you tomorrow if I can. Bye. I returned to the room and spent a good part of the night on the phone researching the effects of hormones. I learned that every body is different and therefore responds differently to treatment. I learned that at my age, and especially a year ago, the body is still very malleable and can develop according to the hormones it produces or receives. I also learned that hormones, in principle, wouldn't make me more or less happy or change who I was attracted to. From what I read, I was able to identify that during the first few months, my mom only gave me testosterone blockers and that the patches must have also contained some dose of estrogen. Finally, the pills my aunt gave me had to be all three: blockers, estrogen, and progesterone. Having read all this, I felt betrayed. By my mom, by my aunt, and even by my cousin. Obviously, she was part of all this. I had to stop taking those pills and escape. Tell my dad so he could pick me up, or just get on a bus without telling anyone? My dad's words came back to me, it's what's caused all the changes, but if you're happy, there's no point in quitting them. Finally, I fell asleep. I dreamed of laughter, different moments when we were all laughing, then the dress. I put it on and walked toward the dance floor, toward him, his smile, his gaze. We danced, but it wasn't to the music of the choreography. There was an intense feeling of peace and joy. In the morning, my mood wasn't the best. I was determined to throw the pills in the trash. The only thing I didn't know was whether to confront my aunt immediately and leave or wait for my mom to arrive so I could complain to her too. I didn't want anything to do with this body or the famous party that had served as an excuse to become a girl. I felt used. It hurt that they'd done that to me and that they hadn't even stopped for a moment to think about what I wanted. I wanted to hate them all. But when Mariana greeted me with her characteristic joy and contagious smile, I couldn't hate her. The day is almost here, cousin. After so much effort. Aren't you excited? It took me a while to answer, but yes, the truth is, I was excited. Even with everything I was feeling, I couldn't help but get emotional thinking about the party and the choreography and the dress. Yes, I told her. Let's get ready for yoga class. She pulled me into her room like the first time, and we got dressed for class. That day, I felt much more self-conscious about my body, and I put on a sweatshirt that made me feel less exposed. We went downstairs to have breakfast, and there were the 3 pills I'd been taking. I wanted to throw them in the trash, or in my aunt's face. For a moment, I clenched my fist to throw them away, but I lost my breath. Everything came flooding back: the dream, the dress, the choreography, my friends, Bernie, and Claudio. I saw my reflection in the microwave, and that feeling of deep joy returned. For a moment, I stared at the girl looking back at me in the reflection. Her smile, her joy for living, I couldn't deny I was happy. My dad's voice echoed again, if you're happy, there's no point in giving them up. I put the pills in my mouth and took a sip of orange juice. I'd deal with all of this after the party. For now, I wanted to experience it all. And that emotion was stronger than any thought. It felt like when you're on the edge of a 10-meter platform, and even though you're sure you'd never jump, you muster up the courage and take a step into the void. All at once terror, excitement, and a certain pride in having dared. Once you hit the water, you decide you'd do it 1,000 more times. It wasn't a firm or fully conscious decision, it was momentary. For a year, I'd been an unwitting victim of my mom and aunt's decisions. At least, from that moment on, the choice was mine. After the party, I'd have to face my mom and eventually figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Probably going back to being the shy guy I always was, or having a new life like Jessie, or maybe there's something in between? I don't know, and I don't want to think about it right now. There were only a few days left until the party, and at that moment, I was deciding to dive right in and enjoy every moment. Only then would I have the tools to face whatever might come next. Yoga. My body was becoming more flexible every day, and for the first time in a long time, I felt in control. Then came the modeling class. That day, I decided to wear an outfit much more appropriate for the modeling class, sexier. If I paid attention, it was incredible how much I had learned in these weeks. I wasn't even remotely a professional model, I'd never have the height for that, but in those heels, controlling every step, every turn, the position of my neck, my gaze. When we left, I didn't change my shoes. Then I noticed how people were looking at me just for walking the way we'd learned. Not just men, everyone. For the first time, I was the center of attention. I felt so powerful. When we got home, my aunt told us to change our clothes because we had visitors. Visitors? My cousin asked her. Has my mom arrived yet? I asked her. Yes, she arrived a while ago, but she went to her hotel. See you tomorrow. So, what visitors? My cousin asked. I invited all your friends to a surprise party to thank them for all their time and commitment and to celebrate that we are ready for the party. And they'll be here in an hour, so get dressed up. We went to change. Mariana put on jeans and a blouse. I didn't have any, so I just chose a looser, more comfortable skirt. We both did our hair and touched up our makeup before everyone started arriving. My aunt already had snacks and mocktails ready for us, and a pitcher of margaritas for herself. We sat in the living room and started playing Jenga. We laughed at everything. I couldn't tell if they would be my friends for life, but at 15, that's how it felt, and for the first time, I was part of a group. After a while, we started playing Cards Against Humanity, a silly and irreverent game that basically involves laughing about any topic. All I can say is that there are topics you shouldn't laugh so much about. The cocktails kept coming, and as usual, little by little, we all felt more uninhibited. Soon, we started playing Spin the Bottle. We started with Truth or Dare, of course. Aida was asked who her crush was and had to answer Bernie. Kyle was asked the same thing and answered Mariana. One of the challenges that started happening was called English Week. A couple would stand back to back while someone else named the days of the week. Each day, both partners had to turn their heads to one side at random. Each time their heads were facing the same way, it counted as a kiss, and each time their heads were facing opposite ways, it was a slap. So, they could end up with 7 kisses, 7 slaps, or any combination in between. I was really amused, but I didn't want to be assigned an English week with anyone, so when the bottle was pointed at me, I chose Truth. Do you know what to ask her yet? Aida asked Mariana. Who was my crush? Mariana asked me. Helen. I answered her. No, that wasn't what you were supposed to ask her. Aida said. You're right. I didn't think about it, but next time, Mariana concluded. I immediately understood that they were going to ask me what I liked about Claudio, and I knew I couldn't lie because they already knew the answer. I couldn't let them ask me that, so when the bottle was pointed at me, I chose Dare. Even though the dares were gradually escalating, I figured that, given my circumstances, no one would go too far. Sure enough, on the next turn, I chose Dare, and they asked me to pretend to apply sunscreen to Claudio's stomach. Since they didn't specify anything else, I stood up and pretended to apply it to his stomach over his shirt. It seemed like an innocent enough dare, but something about it got to me. Claudio's abs were perfect, even through his shirt. I could feel his perfectly defined six-pack. Everything was strong and firm. I couldn't help but feel nervous and surprised to see my small hands on his body, but I overcame the challenge, and nothing else happened. Unfortunately for me, the bottle was pointed at me again just a few turns later. This time, I was asked to simulate applying sunscreen to Claudio's arms. Again, it seemed simple and innocent, so without the slightest complaint, I stood up and began rubbing his arms, but Ada immediately stopped me. "No, not like that," she said. "You have to do it slowly, carefully, covering the entire arm." "Wait, do you have moisturizer?" they asked Mariana. She ran to her room and brought a bottle of body moisturizer and put a little on each of my hands. "Remember that sunscreen is thicker and you have to spread it well, otherwise, it doesn't count, and we'll give you another challenge." Okay, I thought. What could possibly be so difficult about applying moisturizer? I began applying cream from his wrist to his shoulder. I tried to do it slowly, and then it hit me. I was feeling every muscle in his arms. They didn't feel anything like mine. They felt firm, perfectly defined. I started to get nervous. When I reached the shoulder of his left arm, my cousin came over to put more cream on my hands. Then I started on his right arm. I got so nervous that I felt my knees start to shake, and I tried to hurry so they wouldn't notice, but they told me to go slower. I managed to get to his right shoulder, feeling every muscle, and it was almost hard to let go and sit down, pretending that it hadn't caused me any feelings. That's all for today. If you've gotten this far and enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and comment. If you visit the channel, you'll find other stories you might enjoy.